Welcome back, everyone. We are two dudes talking 80s. I'm John. That's my partner in crime, Lewis, or whichever way he's going to be pointing when we film this.
Hello.
Okay, and apparently there's a problem with his Wi-Fi because he slowed down terribly. What's going on, brother?
Not too much, man. How you doing, John?
Good, good. Can't complain. Recovering from a little bout of the COVID, but feel fine. Those mild symptoms, thank God, and ready to get back on my feet. So that's probably why you'll never see me like this again with this amount of scruff, at least until I retire. So anyway, we're going to talk about something 80s. What a shock! Today we're going to talk about our favorite 80s album covers, and there is a lot of really good ones, and I'm sure we're going to miss some really good ones. And I'm sure we're going to hear about it, but. Lou, once again, your friend came up with the suggestion. I thought was a great one, and we're going to make it happen.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that was Karen. So thanks again, Karen, for all the great suggestions. Keep them coming.
That's awesome. So, should we just start off?
Oh, we can go ahead and try this.
All right. So, this is our first run through with this. So, this may get interesting. My first choice is going to be not two dudes talking 80s. This isn't distracting at all. My first choice is for the thrash metal band from New York, and that band is Toxic, and it was their album called Think This. This was a concept album, and a lot of what they discussed in the album, or the concept of the album, was about the media and the way the media controls your thoughts and everything else. Between a lot of the songs, they would have little snippets of commercials, which made it a very interesting concept album. For example, one of the albums was, one of the little snippets before the album. One of the songs on the album was they played a soundbite from what appeared to be an exercise video, and they followed it right up with a little jingle for a cookie candy bar. And again, it was talking about how the media controls us. And I thought this album does a phenomenal job of it. If you look at it, the kids staring at the TV, looks like the parents have been hypnotized, mesmerized, whatever, by what they're seeing on TV. I think it supports the what they were trying to accomplish great. It was always a very striking album cover, in my opinion, and absolutely one of my favorites.
Yeah, no, it's a good choice, man. I don't think I've ever heard this album, or if I did, I don't remember it. But it's a very fascinating album cover. It's got a lot to look at, and reminds me of They Live for some reason.
Yes, I think because of the eyes and the media, and the messages that they were getting out. This probably came out around the same time, but I just think it's a striking image, and when the thought process behind the album, I think it captures that perfectly, which is a rarity in album covers that they capture really the essence of the album. So I thought they did a fantastic job.
Very cool. Yeah, very interesting album cover. So I'm going to go on to the next one here, which I can't remember what my selection was. Oh, yes, it was Asia, the first album. I've always liked this album cover. I just think it's really well done. Got the total image of fantasy, and I just thought it was very creative. It was, even when it first came out, I just thought this was like one of the coolest album covers ever. Great album as well. Enjoy the music on there as well.
I laugh. You see the movie The 40-Year-Old Virgin, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that scene where he has this poster hung up, and the guy asks him, Seth Rogen asked him, "How bad did the guy laugh at you to get him to frame an Asia poster?" I thought that was hysterical. So unfortunately, every time I see it now, that's the thought process that comes to my mind is that line. But you're right; it's an incredible image. Do you have any idea who the artist was that did this?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I know that all of Asia's albums, so they've all got this sort of theme, and all very similar. Very, very cool.
That's a great choice. Shocking again, one of those ones that I didn't think of, and kind of wish I had. Looking at it's just a beautiful image.
Awesome, man. Awesome. On the next one.
Sure, let's do it. So this was my choice, and Metallica, Ride the Lightning. First off, I just always loved the image of this. I think the colors are striking. It immediately catches your eye. The idea of the electric chair with the lightning, for the concept Ride the Lightning. I just beautiful album cover. I think it's far and away my favorite Metallica album cover. The way they did the logo, I think, is fantastic on this one. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about it. It just you saw this and it really captured your eye. You went right to it, and wanted to get this album, which I did. I didn't care what they had on the cover; it could have been all black. Who would have thunk? But it worked out really well, and it's a fantastic cover, one of my favorites.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. I had this on my list as well, and when I understood that this was going to be one of yours, it of course dropped off. But this is far and away my favorite Metallica album cover, and probably their album, to be honest. But yeah, super striking, just very vibrant, very eye-catching, and just the blue and white. Just it's a great album cover. So yeah, this is probably one of my favorites as well.
Move on.
So going on to the next one, I also went with Metallica. I went with Master of Puppets. It was the runner-up to Ride the Lightning. I think this is a really sort of thought-provoking cover. It's not as striking as the Ride the Lightning. It doesn't just give you that blam factor, but once you start
Blam?
looking at it, what's that?
Blam? That's what it is.
Blam.
It sounds like something you would have seen out of the old '60s Batman when they punched. Blam.
Kapooey. And but it is thought provoking to look at it, and to see the hands with the puppet strings going into the graves, and all of those are presumably the graves of soldiers and stuff. So very powerful album cover. Again, not as striking as Ride the Lightning, but still probably their second best album cover in my opinion.
I would agree. It's a great image. It's not going to draw your eye like Ride the Lightning. It's probably more thought provoking, to be honest. But yeah, it's also a little depressing too. So
Yeah.
something that's never really stuck out with me for that reason. I think I just try and do a little blockage on it because it is, to me, such a depressing album cover.
Yeah. Yeah. Next.
Let's do it. So this one's kind of interesting because, as you know, I'm not a huge Black Sabbath fan, and this is probably the only album of theirs that I really like. I did not care for Black Sabbath with Ozzy Osbourne. Sorry, I know that's sacrilege to a lot of people, but I remember seeing, back in the day, looking at the old Hip Parader Circus magazines, and they'd be advertising this album, and I just thought this was just such a striking image, and very controversial, obviously, and it just seemed like, wow, they're going for it, and it's just one of those things that I remember. It's this image stuck with you, so you'd see it in a magazine or whatever, and that image would stick with you, and I think that was you know very important, and I thought it was a great marketing piece, and again, conveying the concept of heaven and hell very well, and I thought it was an interesting way to do it as opposed to what you would expect, which would be like angels and demons. Kind of an interesting way to establish that concept.
Yeah. I also think it's a really cool album cover. The fact that you chose this one deterred me from choosing one that I thought was a little bit of a ripoff of this one, and this was Van Halen's 1984. Same sort of concept where you've got the angel smoking, a cigarette and stuff. So you've got sort of the mixture of good and evil. But not to say that smokers are evil, but anyway, you get the concept. But again, I always thought it was a little bit of a ripoff because the concept was the same.
Yeah, and I mean the Van Halen one was interesting, but it never captured my attention like this cover did. I just you see it once and you never forget it.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that with all the albums that come out, used to come out, I think the cover art is really a lost art, and this one was fantastic.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Very impactful. So, dovetailing off of Heaven and Hell, which had Ronnie James Dio as the singer, ta-da! I have the Holy Diver album. And I always thought that this one was also very thought provoking. I'd sit there and try and analyze it. It's like, what was the demon like flipping the priest around like those old remote controlled planes that we had that really weren't remote controlled because they were tethered by a little wire that you remember those that you'd sort of press a
Yeah.
button and the propeller would run, but still tethered by the wire. Well, anyway, it kept you entertained for about 5 minutes. But anyway, so that's what I thought about with this. Is he like flinging him around? Did he know when the chain was going to go ahead and break and throw him into the ocean and not back into the mountain range behind him? I sat there and overanalyzed everything, but ultimately, this is a really cool album cover. The artwork is very dark. Yeah, this is one of my favorite albums, hands down, period. But I always thought that the artwork was very special on it as well.
Yeah, this was another great choice. I mean, again, the artists, I think back in the 80s, there were, some artists that did just phenomenal stuff and sadly didn't get the attention that they deserved. And this is one of them. And fantastic image, very haunting. And I'm sure it looked really cool on a backdrop.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I think a lot of these bands, I think, especially the heavy metal side, I think they did this stuff and they're like, what's going to look cool on a t-shirt? Gonna sell more t-shirts, and they weren't wrong. And I think the next one is going to be probably one of the most iconic examples of
Drink.
that. It's,
All
it's
right.
by the way, for those people watching this, we're recording it on a Friday and it's like 10 a.m. So no, we're not going to be drinking.
Yeah.
So Lewis is wearing a different shirt, but this was, Iron Maiden's always been known for their covers, and obviously early in their career, Derek Riggs, probably the only artist I remember that did these album covers. And they have more complicated one, more complex, really cool ones, but there was just something about this image that always stuck with me. And back in those days, a lot of times you would buy an album based upon the cover, especially, the heavy metal stuff. You'd be like, oh my God, this looks cool. I have to buy it. And this is one of those album covers you look at and go, yeah, I have to buy this album. And, the fact that it looks like, he's already, taking that axe to somebody who's, holding on for dear life to their shirt, almost like an act of mercy. It's just such an incredibly strong image. This is actually my all-time favorite Iron Maiden album. Yes, it doesn't have Bruce Dickinson, it has Paul Di'Anno, but still probably, from top to bottom, this is probably my favorite Iron Maiden album. And I was never able to see him on this tour. I saw him on the next tour with Bruce Dickinson. But, small fun fact, we did get to play with my band did play with Paul Di'Anno once, so we at least got to hear some of those songs with him performing. But yeah, great image. Just I've never felt they've done anything better than this. This was amazing.
Yeah, all of their album covers are really great. When we decided to do this topic, this was the first one that popped into my head. I don't own this album and I don't recognize any songs off of it unless you play them for me. And I still probably wouldn't recognize any songs. I'm not familiar with this album at all, but the album artwork definitely sticks with you. It's one of those things that's just, again, very dark and just conveys a whole story of what just might have gone down. And what's transpiring, actually. It's a bit terrifying, and that's what I really like about it.
Yeah, what's funny is I used to have a shirt of this album cover, that I bought in the 2015 or so, and I need to get another one. I'd wear it all the time, and I actually wore it out, and ended up having big holes in it. And what's funny is a lot of times I'd wear it to places, and I can't tell you the amount of young late teens, early 20-year-old kids in my book, that would come up to me and compliment me on this shirt or go, "Oh, that's so cool! I love that shirt." And I don't know if it was because they're fans of Maiden or they just really love the imagery. But it's probably out of all the shirts I wear, that one got the most comments. And, it seemed like anytime I wore it, I had to stop wearing it to the gym because inevitably somebody would stop my damn workout to come talk to me about the shirt. So, um, great concept, great cover, still their best.
Agreed. All right. Next one, I decided to veer away from heavy metal and go with Duran Duran's Rio, just because it is so incredibly 80s.
I'm waiting for iconic.
It is iconic. I mean, there's no point where we're not drinking any or anything like that, but it's like, Spinal Tap's None More Black. This is none more 80s. Can't be any more 80s. Absolutely. I mean, the artwork, the styling, the colors, the font, everything just screams absolutely 80s. And that's why I picked this one.
So I know who the artist is. This is Patrick Nagel.
Oh, all right.
And if you read up on him, he died really young. Like he was
Oh,
just kind of, I forget for what, but he died pretty young, and he was just starting to become known. And these Nagel prints were very popular in the '80s. I remember when I lived with my cousin Scott, he went, remember when you'd see people, they'd be selling artwork on the side of on the sidewalks on El Camino. Remember he went
yes.
one day and picked up a couple Nagel prints for our apartment. So, it made us look classier. I'm like, okay. I don't know how that translated, but yeah, these were as 80 as it gets. And what's funny is usually when we, for those that don't know, Lewis and I will come up with a concept of what we're going to do for the next episode. And as soon as I know the concept, I will go ahead and create the intro for it. And I try to veer away purposely from stuff that I may be talking about from the intro, but I have no idea typically what Lewis is going to talk about. And this was actually one of the albums I utilized in the intro. So you were, pulling it out of my head. Good job.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
Did you have a Nagel print?
I didn't. I did not.
The thing that's frustrating is I was watching a movie the other day, a movie or a TV show, and somebody had this. Oh, God, I wish I remember what hanging on their wall, and I forget what I was watching, and I couldn't tell if I'm like I said to my wife, I said, "Oh, that's cool. They had the Duran Rio album cover, or maybe it's just a Nagel print. I don't know." But I was like, I caught my eye immediately on the show or movie I was watching, and of course, because I'm old, I forgot what it was.
All right.
I'm gonna get you a Nagel print. I mean, put it behind you, and make you classier.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Onwards to the next one.
All right. Okay, so this is Cyril Ungol, and I believe the album is called Frost and Fire.
That's correct.
This image was from a book by a gentleman named Michael Moorcock, and he wrote about this character. I want to say it was Eldrick, and they also called him the White Wolf. And I actually became familiar with the books and everything else because the guitar player in my band wrote a song called The White Wolf, and we used to play that when we first started the band. Kind of like, I discussed with Iron Maiden's Killers, where you would go and you'd see an album cover and you'd be like, oh my God, I have to own this. This is everything I want. This is one of those albums that made me buy the album, and I hated it. Absolutely hated it. The singer is what I would call an acquired taste at best. Awful if at worst. Just did not speak to me at all. But you could see why you'd be looking at this, see this album cover, and go, "Oh my God, I've got to have this album." And yeah, that's what the imagery of the '80s would do to you, and especially the heavy metal ones. The heavy metal ones have the coolest covers. There was another one for. I didn't include it on this because it was actually a 45, not an album cover. And it was this band called Demon, and it was like a graveyard and I want to say it was a graveyard in the shape of a cross, a grave marker or a tombstone, and it looked like these demon hands were coming out and ripping it open. You could see entrails and stuff, and
Oh, wow.
it was such a cool cover. And I'm like, oh my god, I've got to own this. And I went back, and it actually was good, but it was like kind of like hard rockish. I'm like, the band's Demon. This is a cover, and it wasn't heavy at all. And it was a really strange thing where the juxtaposition, and I probably didn't say that right or used it right, but it was really strange because I felt the imagery of the album cover, didn't convey the type of music at all.
Right.
And so it's another example of buying something simply based upon the cover, and this was a perfect example. I bought this, and I don't know if I probably even kept this album just because of this cover.
Yeah, it's a cool cover, man. It's pretty intense, very again, very fantasy driven, and yeah, it's a good looking cover.
Yeah, I think the image, and the greens in it, and it's not veering off from the primary color of that green, is just such a striking image. And yeah, even now looking at it, it's like crap. If I didn't know, I'd buy this album again.
Good selection, man. It is very intense and again very very fantasy driven. I liked it a lot. All right, and to wrap things up, I went with Journey's Escape. I was thinking of going with Journey's. Is it Departure? I think it was Departure. And because I really like how vibrant the colors are in that, but I hate the border that goes around the album. It just makes it look way too busy. So I ended up going with this, and I do like this. And I think it's very tasteful. It's very representative of the 80s. And I like the way that their earlier albums had the concept where you had departure, captured, escape, and
Infinity,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Infinity.
Yes, Infinity, Frontier. It's just I thought the whole concept of that was really neat, but I always did like the artwork of this.
This was actually on my list. One of the ones I considered putting on this. I love this album cover. Um, what's funny for me is, now you think of Escape, and everybody, knows Don't Stop Believing. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember that song being that popular from this album. To me, it was always Open Arms was a big one from this one. And I mean, Don't Stop Believing was kind of a hit, but it didn't seem like that was the song that drove this album's success.
I can't remember that far back, John. I'm trying, but it's just not working, man. I for some reason remember Stone in Love being played a bit on the radio, and you don't hear much airplay of it, now. At least I don't, and I like that because I think that's a really good song, and I'm not burnt out on that one yet.
Yeah, and I think Who's Crying Now was another.
That's correct. That's
That
correct.
was, I think that was the bigger hit, but obviously Open Arms is a big one. And then, somewhere Don't Stop Believing took a life of its own, and that's the song that they're, most known for. But yeah, I actually saw them on this tour.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah. So this tour, we were in Burrell, and I went and saw them at the Cow Palace. I forgot this was like they had done 2 nights of the Cow Palace and added this night. 2 of the nights had Lover Boy, and this night had another band, like the local band that my cousin knew, and it was more of a benefit show. I forget what was being benefited, but yeah, it was the only time I saw Journey with Steve Perry, and it was an amazing show, and great choice, great album cover, and one of the ones I probably wish I would have chosen as well. So good job.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And I think that wraps us up here,
And we're
John.
back.
And we're back.
That was interesting. I like doing this. It was kind of strange because I felt like I was, every time you put an album cover up there, I was, speaking more about the album cover, like I'm standing in front of a painting and talking about it. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, like we're in a museum and observing
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
Have you ever been in a museum other than when you were forced to go for school?
I have
Okay.
a couple of times. Yeah.
For art?
Um, it was I guess it's considered a museum. Body Works.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't count that as a museum.
Okay. Then
I'm
maybe
probably
not.
for art. I have to say, maybe this speaks very poorly of me, but Nancy and I, when we were in Italy, we went to a very famous, and I can't remember the name of it, art museum in Florence. And you have to buy your tickets way in advance, and there's always a line and everything else. And I got in there, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is awful! I'm so bored." A
Uh,
lot of it was very religious art, which that's fine, but it's not really my thing. And seeing 5 paintings in a row is okay, that's cool. And then when you see like hundreds of them, you're like, okay, I'm really over this. Can we get a dolphin in here or something, a sunset, something? Not my thing. So if you ever want to bore the crap out of me, take me to an art exhibit. There you go.
Excellent, man. I apologize, John. I've got to wrap this up, but I do want to ask you real quick if we can talk just very briefly about your shirt.
Yeah. What would you like to know? So this is the Sunset Drive-In. It's a drive-in that still is in existence to this day. I love drive-ins, as you know. The fact that they lost the one in Burlingame, used to go there all the time. But this started in the 50s, so it had to be around in the 80s, and thought I'd show a little love to the drive-in. They're a dying breed, and still one of my favorite things to do.
Very cool, man. Very, very cool. Anything else,
Our
brother?
I think we're good. I think we got our concept for next week set up, and yeah, look forward to doing it again.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right. Well, then, as usual, brother, why don't you go ahead and take us out?
Okay, without me hitting anything.
Yeah, step back, make clearance.
Peace.
Thank you, guys.